Hey guys, Vezina here with Remax Hallmark Realty Group, and thank you for considering using my services as a real estate agent. In this video, I'll walk you through the key points outlined in the RECO information guide you've received. This guide is provided by the Real Estate Council of Ontario, otherwise known as RECO, the regulatory body overseeing real estate agents and brokerages. RECO plays a crucial role in regulating real estate agents, educating consumers, and ensuring a safe and informed real estate marketplace. RECO administers and enforces the Trust in Real Estate Services Act 2002. The information you have is a part of their initiative to inform and protect consumers like you. You've received this guide because you are either considering receiving services from myself, a real estate agent, or perhaps I'm representing a client in a real estate transaction and you may want to receive assistance from me. As a real estate agent in Ontario, I'm required to provide you with this guide before offering any services for assistance. I also must tell you that I am registered with RECO, have completed the necessary education, and I hold consumer deposit and professional liability insurance. So we're going to jump into this guide and have a brief overview so that you're informed based on my explanation about the information contained herein. So what's inside? We're going to talk about working with a real estate agent, knowing the risks of representing yourself, signing a contract with a real estate brokerage, understanding multiple representation, and how to make a complaint. So working with a real estate agent. If you're a seller, an agent can advise you on market conditions, they can advertise your home, they can provide referrals to other professionals, they can arrange and attend home inspections and appraisals, they can arrange showings for interested buyers, advise you on how to handle competing offers, sharing the content of competing offers and other aspects of the transaction. They can vet offers and potential buyers to ensure they can afford your property, negotiate with buyers to achieve the best results, price, and terms for you, and guide you through the paperwork process and the closing of the transaction successfully. If you're a buyer, an agent can assist you with getting a pre-approval, can make you aware of any tax exemptions you might be eligible for, gather and share information about neighborhoods and homes that meet your requirements, and arrange to show you homes, make inquiries about zoning, permitted property use, and other aspects of the home. We can also advise you on the best approach in competing offer situations and how to protect your offer information. We can negotiate with sellers to achieve the best results, price, and terms for you, guide you through paperwork and closing the transaction successfully, and provide you referrals to other professionals you'll need, for example, home inspectors, lawyers, contractors, etc. You'll also benefit from the duties the brokerage and agent owe to you as a client. So we owe you undivided loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, and the ability to avoid conflicts of interest. You have a responsibility as a client to be clear about what it is you want and make sure that you share all information that might be relevant. Your responsibility is to respond to your agent's questions quickly, understand the terms of your agreement with the brokerage, and pay the fees you have agreed. We'll discuss that later in page 7, even if an agreement to buy or sell later falls through because of your default or neglect. Know the risks of representing yourself. There are significant risks in terms of representing yourself in a real estate transaction. You'll be dealing with the seller or buyer who is benefiting from the services, opinions, and advice of an experienced real estate agent. RECO, the Real Estate Council of Ontario, recommends that you seek independent professional advice before you proceed as a self-represented party. If you choose not to work with a real estate agent, it will be your responsibility to look after your own best interests and protect yourself. The real estate agent is working for another party in the transaction. It's important to be aware that the agent has a legal obligation to act in the best interests of the person on the other side of the transaction. If you are a buyer or even just inquiring about the property, for example, and the agent is working for the seller, the agent has the duty to do what's best for their seller client, so just be aware of that. The agent cannot provide you with any services, opinions, or advice to do anything that would encourage you to rely on their knowledge, skill, or judgment, or encourage you to represent yourself, or discourage you from working with another real estate agent or brokerage. Any assistance the agent offers you is a service to their client, not you. It's in the best interest of their client and not you, and is to help their clients sell or buy a property. You have the right to change your mind. If you're concerned about completing a transaction on your own, or you need advice from a real estate agent, you can choose to become a client of a real estate brokerage at any point during the transaction. Signing a contract with a real estate brokerage. When you become a client, you sign a representation agreement with the brokerage, which is a contract between you and the brokerage for real estate services and representation. What to look for in a representation agreement. So your representation agreement should describe the duties owed to you, the services you'll receive, your rights and responsibilities, what you will pay, and specific terms of the agreement, including how long the agreement will last and whether you can cancel it. Here are some key things to look for. The name of your designated representative, specifically the services. There are no standard sets of services in these agreements. Brokerages vary widely on the various services they provide, but it should be clearly outlined. The payment amount in terms, so you and the brokerage decide the amount you'll pay for services. The amount is not fixed or approved by RECO, any government authority, or any real estate association. It's totally negotiable. If you are a seller, your agreement needs to clearly indicate the amount you agree to pay your brokerage, the amount you agree to pay, if any, to compensate the buyer for their brokerage fees, how the amounts you agree to pay might change if you consent to a multiple representation. We'll get into multiple representation a little later on. If you're a buyer, your agreement needs to clearly indicate the amount you agree to pay your brokerage for the services and representations you receive. How the amount you agree to pay will change if the seller agrees to cover some or all of the brokerage fees, and how the amount you agree to pay might change if you consent to multiple representation. It's important to note that the vast majority of transactions in Ontario or in and around Ottawa, for example, involve cooperating commission rates that the sellers, in most cases, provide a compensation to the buyer's agents. But again, something to look for in the buyer representation agreement. Termination provisions. Any agreement should list all circumstances when an agreement can be terminated. Two important circumstances to be aware of are multiple representation and when there's a change in your designated representative. Expiry date, relatively self-explanatory, but it's important that it's explicitly clear in the agreement. Additionally, the holdover clause. Most representation agreements include what is often called the holdover clause. The clause may require you to pay brokerage fees for a purchase or sale, even when the transaction happens after your representation agreement expires. I'll use an example here to help clarify exactly what a holdover clause is. Let's say you're a seller and your agreement includes a 30-day holdover clause. This means that even if your agreement has expired, under certain conditions, you might be obligated to pay the brokerage commission if you end up selling your home during that 30-day holdover period. Similarly, assume you enter into a buyer agreement that includes a 30-day holdover clause and the agent shows you a home before the expiry of the contract. If you buy the home after the expiry of the agreement, but during the holdover period, you might be obligated to pay the brokerage commission. Understanding multiple representation. So there's two different distinct types of multiple representation outlined here in the RECO guideline. There's brokerage representation, which is multiple representation exists where a brokerage represents both parties in the transaction. And then there's designated representation. So that's when your designated representative represents both sides of the transaction. Multiple representation is not permitted unless each of the clients involved agrees. So this needs to be expressly communicated in relation to any sort of transaction that multiple representation exists. It's important to understand the risks. If you agree to multiple representation, the brokerage or designated representative must treat each of the clients involved in an objective and impartial manner, cannot maintain undivided loyalty to you, or promote and protect your interests over the interests of another client. We cannot offer advice to you about such things such as price or any sort of additional terms associated with the agreement. Again, going back to what we were talking about previously in terms of terminating an agreement, That's why, given the risks that are explicitly there with multiple representation, it affords you as a consumer an opportunity to cancel an agreement or terminate an agreement. So what to expect before you agree to multiple representation? The brokerage is required to provide you with written disclosure. Bottom line, it has to be expressly outlined when we come in contact with multiple representation. You can refuse multiple representation. So again, if you don't agree, the brokerage or your designated representative is not allowed to proceed. So ask the brokerage or real estate agent about alternatives to multiple representation. And lastly, how to make a complaint. First things first, contact the brokerage. In many cases, your brokerage will be able to mediate or resolve your complaint about a real estate agent or the services provided under your representation agreement. Search for the brokerage in RECO's public register to find the name of broker of record, who is the person responsible for ensuring the brokerage complies with the law. Secondly, contact RECO. To file a complaint with RECO about a brokerage or real estate agent, visit the complaints section of the RECO website. The website explains the complaints process, possible outcomes, and how to file your complaint. RECO will review the issue, determine if it has the authority to deal with it, and what next steps, if any, it will take. Where to get more information, you can visit RECO's website. In conclusion, I'd like to thank you for taking this time to listen to our video, read over the RECO guidelines. Of course, if you have any questions or any concerns, please do not hesitate to contact us, reach out for further information. We're happy to help. Thank you.